Back again.
Iain Dale, text 84850. This is LBC.
22 minutes past 8, we're with Professor Kathleen Stock. We're talking about trans rights, gender identity. We're going to, well, in fact, why not let's take some calls in Guildford. Hello, Dave.
Hello.
Yes?
Hello, Dave.
I'm sorry?
Is that Dave?
Hello, Kathleen.
Hiya.
Just wanted to ask you a question, actually. You said at the beginning of the conversation that you didn't want to essentially eliminate trans women from public life. I was wondering then why you actually signed the WHRC declaration, which essentially is calling for basically trans women to be removed from pretty much all spaces that involve women, to legally protect parents who wish to block trans kids from accessing any help at all, to legally protect.
Okay, so the Women's Human Rights Declaration, fantastic campaign. I was very proud to be part of the team that hosted the first UK event to publicise this declaration. I've signed it. Many of us have signed it. It doesn't call for the elimination of trans people, and I don't know where you're getting that paranoid fantasy from. What do you mean, elimination? Do you think it's a computer game? Like you can be eliminated somehow? Like beep, 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 boop? I don't know. I don't understand what the question is.
Deliberate misgendering.
Right. As for blocking parents, as for enabling parents to block trans kids from accessing help, we want to end the childhood transition train. We do not believe there's any circumstances in which children should be having puberty blocked without with no end point in mind. I mean, those drugs were designed to be used for like maximum a year if you had a precocious puberty. Kids are being put on them for like 4, 5, 6 years because they're not legally able to be given cross-sex hormones in the UK until a bit later, although there are dodges. I'm not going to say how there are dodges because I don't want to make it easier for people, but you know, to block puberty is a massive medical intervention, and it should not be being pursued for a psychiatric justification, and cross-sex hormones are poisonous to the opposite sex, and there are no circumstances in which it's appropriate to feed the opposite sex's level of hormones into a person.
Ban trans women from being recognised as mothers and trans men from being...
Right, motherhood. You're not getting it. No, you're not getting motherhood. Growing a baby inside your body from, you know, minuscule size of a cell and building that entire person from the resources in your body with one cell of contribution from a male person is a massive undertaking, and then to actually birth that person and then to nurture that person, to feed that person from your body, and then to nurture that child as they grow through life and according to the life stage ultimately become a wise advisor when they go on to have their own children. Motherhood is not up for grabs. No. No, you're not getting it.
being recognised as fathers, to ban scientific research.
There's nothing wrong with being a father. I don't understand it. I mean, it is actually a really valuable parental role. Having a good father is a really important thing for a lot of kids. And of course kids can cope without a father. And of course there are some single dads that bring up their kids really well without a mother. But in general, having parents invested in children is a good thing. You do not need to be called by the name of your female partner in order to have a valuable role in that child's life. I don't understand it. That's her name. She's mum. She's always going to be mum. Makes me cross.
Towards trans women getting pregnant.
Trans women can't get pregnant. Okay? That is never going to happen either. Because your bodies couldn't tolerate having a uterus in them. The only uterus it's impossible. if you somehow had a pregnant uterus transplanted into your body, you still couldn't be pregnant because you don't have the suspensory ligaments that are required to hold a baby in place. Your body doesn't have the space for your organs to be shoveled around as they are in pregnancy so that the baby has got space to grow. Your pelvis isn't the right shape to create space for a baby. And how are you going to birth it? This is a fantasy that is based in some kind of weird Japanese pornography, and it is just nothing. This is not something we should even be allowing as part of our political debate.
What does WHRC stand for, by the way?
Sorry.
Women's
The
Human
Women's
Rights
Fact-Based Rights
Declaration.
made by
The Women and Human Rights Campaign.
That's
Right.
one, yeah.
Right, well, there's quite a lot in that, Kathleen.
There's a lot in that. Well, that was a quite tendentious,
Dave.
Hello, Dave.
in my opinion, presentation of what that's saying. So there's a declaration that was written in 2019, I think, and it went round by email, and I got a copy, and along with hundreds and hundreds of other people, I signed it.
Men and women.
It did not aim to eliminate trans women from public life.
Of course it didn't. How would you
I'm afraid
do?
I disagree. I mean, it's true that this has been said several times recently, but it's just not true. And anyone who wants to go and look at the text of that,
I mean, you
see
can
it.
say
In
the
fact,
moon is made of green
I
cheese.
saw
Doesn't make
recently
it
that
true.
only like a couple of weeks ago, Richard Dawkins signed it when he saw it.
Absolutely,
and I'm sure
good
he would
man.
sign up to some of the things you just said. But it is true, I think, if you take children and whether children should be given puberty blockers, I don't think they should. And it's true that I don't think children should be given cross-sex hormones or...
Good.
and in America, they can have a double mastectomy by the time they're 14. So I definitely don't think those things should happen because I believe
That's
that
a
children
human
can
rights
change their
abuse.
minds later about these things and be quite confused about it.
Well, I've
so
actually got
that's one
some of
example.
the wording here. So, for example, we reaffirm motherhood as an exclusively female status.
Yeah, I do think that's true.
And that was one of the things that Dave was pointing out, that he obviously thinks that's not right. We reaffirm women's and girls' rights to physical and reproductive integrity and oppose their exploitation through surrogacy and related practices. What does that even mean?
Well, it
Surrogacy.
taps into a wider...
Surrogacy is a massive human rights abuse, okay, and it is an example of the, as Stock will no doubt say, it is an example of the oppression of the white, Western, wealthy world against the poor brown women that are in existence in other parts of the world, and also white women that are in Eastern Europe and countries that are still developing over there. It is a massive, massive human rights abuse. It is not freedom, it is oppression.
Conversation about whether human bodies are a resource to be used, and so feminists like me are also very worried about the practice of surrogacy, which is often an exploitative transaction with, isn't it, sometimes with people in much poorer countries being used for their bodies basically in order to provide rich
But surely
people with
if a
children.
woman wants to be a surrogate mother, that is her exclusive...
Right. This comes up sometimes in conversations about surrogacy. If your sister is unable to bear her own children, and for whatever reason she's unable to come to terms with that, because that does happen to a lot of women who are not childless by choice. There is a process that you have to undergo to come to terms with the trauma of not having the role of mother that you were expecting to have, role of mother to your own biological child. Obviously you can still adopt, you have to go through a process to do that. But I have known of instances where one sister has offered to bear a child for the other sister, and even I think of cases where a mother has offered to birth a child for a daughter. I do not think that you can class altruistic surrogacy, a surrogacy which is done for love, which involves no money changing hands, and which is usually within a small family. You cannot compare that with commercial surrogacy. There are some things that are beyond value. Human life is beyond value. There is no price that you can pay that should justify you taking a baby from its biological mother.
decision. That's the ultimate. Surely a feminist would think that was a great thing, that a woman decides what to do with her own body.
Well, you know, feminism is a broad church, and that sounds like what I would call a liberal feminist, who is absolutely all about choice and freedom, but it's usually, you know, a certain myopia about how one person's freedoms can impact other people. So we have a different conception of feminism there, and I'm sure, you know, we could talk about that for hours. But in terms of, I think what the caller said something about, did I get that wrong? Trans women, you know, there is a movement to give trans women womb transplants, basically. No, I definitely don't think that that's a good use of the NHS's resources either. So I think these are deep matters. We're not going to necessarily sort it out in a 2-minute soundbite. But yeah, there are some views I have that I unashamedly have, and I think they're feminist ones.
And they're legally protected.
I just think that some of this document, especially some of the co-signatories, people like Graham Linehan, who, shall we say, has been banned from every form of social media pretty much, and has some quite extreme views.
No, he doesn't.
You've got people like Richard Dawkins who signed this.
Eminent biologist.
You've got groups like the LBC.
He's not. You couldn't describe Richard Dawkins. I mean, I don't agree with him on virtually anything, but you can't describe him as an extremist. Some of the things that he said recently have been quite contentious. I mean, contentious is one thing, extremist is another.
And this is basically guilt by association, which is, you know, a very common tactic. But, you know, these people, how am I responsible for what other people sign?
Well, you're not responsible for what other people sign.
Thank you.
But you're in the same group of people, so therefore it is almost like guilt by association. When you do have extremists that are co-signatories of this document, which is essentially...
They probably shop at Tesco's, but it doesn't mean everyone who shop at Tesco's is an extremist. Not that I accept that these people are extremists, but this is a really crass tactic to try and get at me, to be honest, because, you know, I do things that lots of other people do.
I don't think it's crass, to be honest. I think that you have put your signature alongside a lot of other people who have quite extremist views, and obviously there is an association.
Do you regard J.K. Rowling as an extremist, Dave?
I wouldn't say she's an extremist, no.
This is the end of part 4. Hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for part 5 dropping soon.